sir.
And appreciate it. What an
problem.
amazing experience we're going to be having. Let's get to it. Let's get to this interview. Have a seat.
Good. All right.
So I'm glad we got to meet up with you, Michael. And you're telling me the other day that you've had a box that was given to you after John Andrews passed, and his wife gave you his archives of his Bob Lazar interview. And right now we're going to be going over some of the audio tapes, but what amazes me is, who is this John Andrews? What was his purpose for meeting up with Bob Lazar in the first place?
Good question. John Andrews is kind of an unsung hero within the plastic model industry. He was the senior project design engineer for Testers Model Corporation based out of Rockford. His office was in San Diego, California. And the backstory is they wanted to do a plastic model kit of the Lazar S4 Sport model. So John Andrews interviewed Bob Lazar, got the technical details, incorporated those details into the plastic model, which became the S4 Sport model, and that's the background.
So before we get to the audio tapes, again, what was John Andrews' motivation? He really believed the Bob Lazar story, and he's looking for smoking gun proof and thinking that he could actually build?
It's a very good question. Yes, he did believe the story, and he wanted to put this in a model form for educational purposes for the youth. And he always felt that building models educates people and gets them motivated. So that was his motivation, and he felt there was enough evidence to support the existence of putting it into a model form. Correct.
So we're going to be listening to these incredible historical tapes that you've received, but actually, Michael, how did you come in possession of these materials?
Good question. I had met John Andrews in person in San Diego back around 1998, just before he passed away, and kind of developed a friendship with John. He later passed away. His wife Darlene contacted me later, and she said, "Mike, I've got 7 boxes waiting for you." And it was just an inspirational moment, highlight of my life. Drove to San Diego, picked up the boxes, and maintained an important part of our national history by keeping that within the historical archives. And within those 7 boxes were drawings, notes, audio tape interviews that have never been heard before. And that's what you have now. So that's where we're moving to. Yep.
So what was John Andrews' impressions of Bob Lazar?
I get the impression after looking at the documents that John was skeptical, but he was open-minded. He wanted further evidence to support the claim, and that's why he sent out FOIA requests to actually visit alleged S4 facility to get some more historical background. So I think he was open-minded, but there was enough there to build a plastic model.
You know, again, these tapes are so amazing, and John Andrews' motivation behind getting to Bob Lazar, asking these questions, and now finally the world's hearing it for the first time. Let's listen more to the incredible tapes revealed by Michael Schratt, the Bob Lazar interview.
Yeah, more or less. You can tell it must have puddled there because there's tracks that have mudded up in a few places.
What about inside the bag? Is it just rough concrete work?
No, it's the entire slab is large piece of concrete, and it's like you put a gloss or lacquer coat on it. It's but it's concrete, but they put some kind of coating on it. Yeah, but very very shiny. Also, probably slippery too.
Is there a lot of painted marks on the floor? Like red lines or places like
No, I saw it. It was yellow tape. But I don't know. That's the only thing I remember noticing.
Was there any rules about rings, watches? You had to remove things before you went into these areas, or?
Well, you removed those before you went into the installation.
They give you a badge then? Did you exchange a badge that you
No,
all the time?
Well, to get in, you get your badge. To get in.
So you didn't have a badge when you first get there?
No.
And exchange it like for a white one, for a yellow one, for a red one?
No.
You got on the airplane, you went there.
You went to get on with an escort,
And then you got your badge at the installation.
Right at S4, not at ground.
Were you given like one of those little green U.S. government ID cards with your picture on it or anything like the military has?
Didn't get a film dose badge either, nothing.
How'd you get on board the airplane? Escort all the time?
on board to plane at
The EG&G.
Yeah, Dennis was always waiting there for me.
Okay.
So there were no dose badges. There wasn't any fear, evidently, or anything.
Not that I saw on anybody.
That's really interesting. It tells you something about the material. You know, I mean, you've dealt with it. God, you dealt with all that crap.
I mean, on Los Alamos, you know,
Mark II.
in places where there was no
That's
radioactive material at all, you had a dose badge on anyway.
Yeah, my son-in-law is a nuclear power plants officer aboard the Nimitz. And he says, oh, yeah, badges all the time. They're tested all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody's got them.
Everywhere. But no, none for that area.
She's got to say something about the safety of the material. And there's no
disregard for human life.
One or the other, yeah.
Yeah, perhaps that. No, I don't think so. I wouldn't think so.
When you got the job or whatever, were you given any kind of like an outline of what has to happen by a certain date, or was it just go as you have to, or get it done as it goes, or?
It was strange. There was really no, goals set.
Were there any like morning briefings, afternoon briefings, or?
No, I wasn't to that stage yet. I was more of a casual employee. There was no set job for me to perform yet. You know, I had.
What did they ask of you, Bob, when you first were interviewed, or the second interview at EG&G? What were they concerned
It was
about?
strange. They went through with a typical interview. What I had done. In
Incidentally,
previous jobs.
this is just amongst us. This is not going to go anywhere.
What I had done in previous jobs with my field of expertise was specifically what I did in Los Alamos and things along that sort. But the second interview, which I think really weighed heavily, they really wanted to know what I did in my spare time. It was almost like my personal life. And, I kept reverting back to, I worked, I wasn't sure that they were interested in me, and I kept, pulling out of my memory things that I had also worked with, and I said, cryostats. I did a lot of work with cryostats in Los Alamos, a lot of cryogenic work, low temperature this, and they said, yeah. So, about this other stuff you did. Yeah, they'd always go back to, it was almost like a personality interview or to see what my interests were out of work, and which completely confused me. So at that time, then I just gave up and just answered the questions.
Do you think they were looking for a situation where if they had to deny anything that you've ever said, they could find it easy to do so because of the background?
Maybe so. They asked me all kinds of off-the-wall questions and things they knew that obviously they had spoken to somebody that knew.
Did they know about the brothel and all of this other stuff?
They knew about that. They knew about everything, a bunch of crazy things I did. And
it's almost like they were.
And in fact,
they would deny you should something or other.
Well, they went on and on about all this stuff, and they said, I don't know who they spoke to. When I was 15 or something, I blew out the second-story windows in my parents' house. And they brought that up, and I said, "Where are you guys getting this from?" And they had all this personal information about me, and I finally said somewhere in the interview that I said, "Is this working against me, by the way? Because now I'm not sounding like a guy that you'd want to hire." And then, they all laughed, and that was essentially the end of the interview when I was told to come back after that. But I don't know what the point was.
When they checked on me, they checked on my neighbors. They never came to me, never talked with me, but they talked with my neighbors.
They never talked to my parents.
Oh, they talked
in the
to
Air
me.
Force. They talked to all the neighbors in the neighborhood. They never talked to my parents.
In fact, when I had heard that there were two investigators, this goes back to 1959, and I called the FBI office in Chicago, and I said, "Look, this is what I do. I'm an aviation historian, and I discovered the U-2 and what it does, and I have an interest in aerial reconnaissance airplanes, RB-57D, RB-36Js, And I said, I'd be happy to talk with you, but this is what I do. I intend to keep doing it. I'll come down to your office or send your guy out, and we'll sit down and talk." And they never confirmed it or anything else. They never said that it was their people or anything. My neighbors didn't know. They just said that They asked me, are you changing jobs? Are you going to work for the government or something, John? Because two guys have been asking all kinds of questions about me. Was I a good father, a good citizen, all, the whole background. So when I discovered that, I called FBI, and then they never called me in, and they never confirmed that it was them. And at that time, it could have been CIA people, because I was interested in the U-2 at that time. That's what it was all about.
Yeah, one of my friends who they talked in depth with, he said, again, they were, they really wanted to know about my personality. They said, in fact, I think specifically one of their questions was, now look, when this guy gets mad, does he start throwing screwdrivers around or things like that? And, how much does he drink? Questions along those lines.
Stability issues, yeah.
Drugs and things like that.
Yeah, of course, drug stuff came up.
Mark got into hot water. He kind of liked a little lady in England who was with the IRA. The Air Force frowned upon it.
Yep.
Caused a little problem.
I dealt with the OSI on that.
Yeah, they came and pulled one of my friends out of work, USI up in Tonopah.
And they're ones to find any little niche they can get a crowbar into about your past and whatnot that they can use eventually as evidence why you shouldn't be around or whatever.
Well, should we go back and make some sketches and side views and try and get it as right as possible? We'll have a great variety so you can look at it and make your comments. We'll try and get the levels right and everything else. And we can take it from there. And I can do the nice illustration. You might want to do the little keys and insights into it, all that stuff. But I'll do the scene. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, that should be a neat drawing. I'd love to have that enlarged in something. In fact, do a line drawing of that too, or photocopy it before you color it, so I can have my T-shirt.
Yeah,
I've always wanted.
yeah.
Of course, you might have to sign a licensing agreement with the government or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is still I just wonder how far they're going to go before, or tolerate and allow everybody to mess with this before they say something.
Unless, like so many people said, maybe that's their intention. I find that hard to believe.
How do you... It's so well contained. How do you prove it or disprove it? Other than,
Is it that well contained, though? I mean, is it really? Look how much...
Well, no, it's not. But to your question, do you ever feel you want to get back into the physics side of it? I mean, just...
Oh, yeah.
Making pictures is wonderful if it pays the rent, but I mean, you've got to, because of your background and knowledge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You want to get back into it somewhere, somehow.
I wish I could have just been there a little longer, and now I wouldn't be so flabbergasted with everything I saw. I can concentrate on the missing pieces of information that I want. Yeah, I want back in, but not, on my own terms.
Is Dennis absolutely stable? Is he content and happy with what he's doing and never, ever will ever say anything about it?
I don't think so. How can anybody be that way? It's got to be a little pride point in everyone's life.
I mean, the other physicists or engineers, whatever they were, whatever specialty they had, there's got to be a point where they begin to think that, God, if the other scientists in this field knew this,
right?
Thermodynamicists, whatever was going on, there's got to be something there that would potential benefit if we could get this out. And unless they're doing that, is it being filtered into industry somehow? Select companies, EG&G or whoever into the university system.
If it's not, and it's just the other way, just the people that had guts to say anything.
Was he looking for like a new form of metapropulsion that he could maybe develop his own device?
Well, John was very technical. He was very detail-oriented. He had paid attention to detail, and he wanted to know all of the specific details regarding the length, the diameter, entryway hatch, if this thing was real, what did it look like, what were the internal components, and those type details would be incorporated into the model, and so that's why he asked that.
So when John Andrews passed, Darlene called you up, and it sounded exciting, obviously. You received the package, but what's incredible is that these tapes were preserved. What were the exact tapes? Were they cassette tapes?
Cassette tapes, old school cassette tapes.
And then we're doing some audio enhancements because it was a little hissy.
Right.
But we're actually doing a dehiss, so we're actually restoring the audio quality to its best form. But as we're listening to Bob Lazar, he seems that you can tell that he's a little younger and a little, not quite as refined as he is now in his speech. But you could hear that he was really adamant about what he is saying. I didn't hear any kind of deception. Again, he could just be a great actor, but John Andrews seemed like he had some kind of motivation to get to Bob Lazar. Again, we're looking at this and listening to it. What's your thoughts, again, on John Andrews' motivation? Like, who got in his ear saying, you got to go take a look at this Bob Lazar story?
Well, he always had an interest in aviation, and this kind of tied in together, and it was his goal to vet out the details so that he could build an actual plastic model given the details provided by Bob Lazar.
What kind of time did you spend there when you were there? I mean, did you spend like at the most a few hours? Did you spend a whole day?
Sometimes I spent up to 8 hours, but that was only on a couple occasions. Usually it was only about 4 or 5 hours.
And where did you eat? I mean,
Usually I
did they have a
did.
break room?
No, because I'd eat before I went out there. I usually eat about 3:30 before I went out, and when you got to 51 and waited for the bus, there was a little like snack shop cafeteria thing where you could get something, but there was no place to eat down there.
Did they have drinking fountains at all?
Yeah, they had drinking fountains, but there was no place.
No Coke machines or.
No, I never did see
the guard
anybody.
go with you to the men's room?
Yes, I never did see, and went inside too. I never did see any place to eat, but then I never asked, so I don't know. Maybe, and like I said, I only saw a little bit of the installation, and where I worked, this thing could be big. Of course, it could only be that size too, but I just don't know.
How many times were you actually out there?
6, something like that.
The guard was with you all that time, constantly. And was this the case with everybody that was there for the most part? Or just a new man, a new kid?
Most of the time, but most of the time with other people, but more with me. Now, and it wasn't every single time, because when I worked with Barry, showing me the way things operated, that was the first time we were alone, and I actually got to kind of joke around with somebody. So we did have some alone time there.
But there was never any socializing off that facility or back here in Las Vegas or anything.
No, like I said, that's one of the reasons I think they worked on the buddy system. You have someone to work with and someone to talk to.
It's almost like the nuclear bomb thing in the submarines.
So you have someone to let out stuff to.
Yeah.
But he's also part of the project, so you can talk to him, but that's it.
Sounds like he was given good psychological studies.
Now, who was the buddy that you had? Was it
Barry.
Dennis or Barry?
Barry.
Was he young? Or
Older than me, maybe 35, 40.
did you get to talk a lot about where you come from and where you?
No, we didn't get that. No, we didn't get that far.
With the intensity of the guard, what was he guarding you against?
I have no idea. It was just there.
Were you going to take something or?
I don't know. It was almost seemed like it was
But
just.
you couldn't make a phone call.
It almost seemed like it was just intimidation.
Oh, that could be too.
I don't know if it really did serve any purpose.
Now, did you see it when it was flight tested? You couldn't tell where the door was anymore on it. I mean, it just sort of blends back in when they put the door on completely.
Unless the door was facing the other side. I didn't see it.
Did you ever see it in the hangar with the door on it?
No.
You saw it. That's it as a model. It's only going to be really neat from the inside. It's one of the things you can pop the top off.
everything is. I think this is the type of project that's got to have artwork on a box.
That looks like the most boring model.
Yeah.
And then even an inset of a gray at one of the seats inside, and do a little plastic gray figure or two, or three or four up in the top.
A guard.
You know, the question is, what was the total crew complement on this?
Were there any dogs out there? Any dog handler type?
You know, it's so remote and buried so far. Maybe they felt that anybody trying to come in would have been caught at the periphery.
Well, I thought maybe they might.
Yet at the same time,
the guys at periphery, the edge on the base.
well, look at what happened this week with the British that got on board for that test, that nuclear test. There were 3 people almost at ground zero. They were, what, a half a mile away or something? That's pretty deep penetration.
Yeah, but that's an easy place to get on. You just hike. There's no security there at all. It's nuts.
Come over the fence near Mercury and then just
Oh yeah,
work your
I
way
mean,
in.
people make a big deal out of that. I don't see the problem. You could walk right onto ground zero.
Well, I was told by
Why they want to.
by OSI colonel. This goes back in the 78 about Area 51. He said, John, if they
I
really
see someone walk onto 51.
well, no, he said if somebody really in numbers made an intense effort to penetrate 51, and there was enough people doing it, it could be done. Because we don't have that many people out there to handle a real en masse charge, so to speak, of people trying to get into the area. And he says that's one of the reasons why we kind of keep it quiet, low key, so that we don't get hundreds of off-roaders out in that area and trying to penetrate. He says we really couldn't keep them all away. Now that may have been
Probably
bullshit,
true.
but then again, maybe it was true. I don't know. What, they get an A10 and strafe them,
Yeah, what lengths would they go to?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because there's still a lot of crap out there at Area 51 that's flying. Interesting machine. Hot stuff.
So last night, you were sharing with us the audio tapes.
Right.
And it was the first time we've heard it. But James C. Goodall was there as well. And we had a discussion. It was kind of cool. What do you think James C. Goodall's opinion of Bob Lazar? You know, they're really good friends, right?
He believes Bob Lazar's story completely, 100%. So,
So when James C. Goodall believes in Bob Lazar, but then there's so many people that kind of still are on the fence. Like you said, we need the evidence, right?
right.
Do you think we'll ever find it? These tapes are pretty provocative, but will we ever break down the doors?
That's what we need, right? We need the physical evidence. Where is the physical evidence? If there really were 9 saucers, where are they now? Did they move them? Are they still there? Or was it all disinformation? I remain skeptical. I need more evidence, so that's what we're looking for.
Again, let's listen to another audio right now from Bob Lazar, the interview.
It had
looking? Or?
Yeah, it had a cap that fit over it. This is where the 115 sat. And that was a copper color.
The cap was too? Or
No,
just
the
cone
cap
inside
was
and-
just the cone inside, or the 115 inside.
And then this tube, I guess, went to the.
No,
These
this
guys,
because
or-
the reactor was removed, and this tube just goes to the base.
Oh, okay. What goes on in the tube? Is that?
I think this gets into the reactor portion. The 115 sits in here, and it's in a triangular shape, and the point of it sits level with this tube. And I think this is where the reaction's taking place, where they it really looks like a little accelerator, where they're accelerating a proton, interacting it with here, and then on the base here. Now all this happens within 2 inches, which is fantastic. On the base here, there's some thermionic generator, and this is where they're converting the heat to electrical power, and where it's producing as a byproduct the gravity wave, which for some reason propagates to the skin of this device. But
Was the 115 a a square-based triangular shape, or is it a complete
No,
triangular?
just like that, a piece with ridges in it. Get rid of this line. Just a slice. I'm gonna draw this in.
Oh,
How did you
From what I
handle-
understand, the way these are cut is the 115 comes in discs, like silver dollar size. They're stacked up. I don't know how they're attached together. This is put on a lathe and cut into a cone. And then with the cone, they slice through it. And then those slices form these, so they have a little curve on top.
It'd almost be like that
Exactly,
as they go through.
exactly. Now, why
Yeah.
this is done, I don't know. If it's just to cut it in a triangle, why not take a piece and do this? Obviously, there's some reason they have to go through all that trouble. But that's what the ridges
Something-
are on them.
Probably something about surface area. Okay.
I don't know.
Is it heavy material?
Yes. Yeah, you can tell it's strange. Just holding it with tongs, it's over heavy.
Is it radioactive at all?
Supposedly it's an alpha emitter, but the piece that I had and I tested, it was just, if it is, it's the lowest level alpha particle emitter I've ever. You just let it run for hours and try and gauge it over background. It might be 1 or 2 counts every 15 or 20 minutes above background. So it's, I don't know what.
So what you're saying is that it's extremely safe
Yes.
to work.
Now, all
Toxic?
heavy.
in
Well,
terms
okay,
of-
all heavy metals are toxic.
Yeah, the
and these
machining,
generally-
the cutting, anything like that would be a
Generally, the
toxic
heavier
one.
they get, the more toxic they are. So I imagine it's highly toxic. Now, it may not be, but I think following along standard lines of the normal elements, I would imagine it's very toxic. I saw no oxide coating on it. It looked a
Non-reactive,
bright
then.
copper color.
If it stayed that way,
Right.
it's relatively stable.
Right. Plutonium, for instance, it ignites on contact with air. It tarnishes instantaneously. Uranium, too.
You say it's copper colored?
Yeah,
Is
like
it
a burnished.
Like that over there?
Beryllium color?
Your pot under the phone there?
Nah, beryllium's too gold. In this area, but brighter, right in here.
See, like the left of your flip.
Yeah,
phone.
Yeah. Yeah, you see that pretty close.
That's an interesting material.
I would say.
Yeah. All the things you've talked about.
I
That's
would
really
imagine they would, after they lathe these cones, whatever, they take this scrap and recycle it to make more. Or?
I'm sure they don't just throw it away. Which makes me think that they're making these discs, that they're melting the material and then cutting them again.
Did you ever see any physical properties listed for the material?
Yeah, melting point, a couple other things too. I wrote them down. Gene has them. I don't remember them off the top of my head.
So this little incense burner, if you will, whatever you're sticking this in, is it basically the same color as the element 115?
No, that's the same color as everything else in the 150. Did you ever see the model that was made?
Of the reactor?
Yeah.
I saw it once on the table in here.
Oh, 'cause there's
when I
some-
came over, it was just the.
There's some video on it.
And
that,
I think I have the video. Yeah.
Yes, that was half scale. I had a friend build that, make it out of metal, and it was very, very close to what it looked like.
You still have it, the model?
No, I don't. I have the video of it, though.
I have the video of it, I believe.
That was very close.
Looking up, at the ceiling or whatever, is there a deck above the deck we're on, with the chairs and the console?
Yes.
And it goes
Yeah.
up through that deck?
Yeah. Now that's why I believe this is just a guess out of the clear blue sky. Should there be any navigating equipment or any other heavy electronic or pseudo-electronic equipment, that's where it is.
On the next day.
Right. On that, because on the ridges here, you see about 3 foot square black. I don't know if they were windows, ports, or if they were just black areas, but certainly something is going on that other level that, of great interest that I didn't get to see.
And they are square?
Yeah.
Are they rectangular?
Incredible historical evidence from the late John Andrews as he interviews Bob Lazar in regards to the craft itself and what's coming up next. We're going to be bringing it to you tomorrow. He's going to go into heavy detail in regards to S4, what it's like in there, and many other revealing moments. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button for part 2 of the Bob Lazar Lost Tapes coming to you tomorrow. And we want to give a big shout out to Michael Schratt from Blue Room Media, who has brought us the evidence to share with you on Third Phase of Moon. Everybody, keep your eyes on the skies. Be safe. Blake Cousins. We'll see you next time.